Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Wedding Season, Season 1, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode, Stefan has been arrested, and obviously Donahue and Met are asking the questions like, well, where is... asking about Katie over and over again, but it's like, right, he doesn't actually know where she is. He's also explaining everything. All right, I forgot, this is after he was already in that cell with that guy. The guy that was punching the wall was like, okay, that's weird. And the guy came over to him and was like, oh yeah, I'm having a rough go of it. He's like, yeah, he's like, oh, this is my daughter. He's like, I needed the money. I was like, wait, what? He tries to kill Stefan, and luckily the guy in the cell with him beats the guy up, takes the shiv, and I'm like, oh, did you tell the police that guy took the shiv? I mean, maybe when he was walking back towards the wall that he was punching, which later on when Stefan's back in that cell, that guy's not there. All you can see is like, you can still see his bloody fist print from when he was punching the wall. But I'm like, did anyone find out whether or not that guy dropped that shiv afterwards? But Stefan was explaining, like, oh, that guy tried to kill me. It's like, even so, like, even if you were saying, like, hey, even if you didn't want to believe Stefan about the fact is the guy was hired to kill him, it's like, oh, maybe he was paid to do it, someone told him to do it. At the very least, you should be a little more like, oh, I'm sorry about that some guy tried to kill you, but I guess it's like, right, it's jail, we can't really help you. I mean, it wasn't even like full jail, it was more so like a holding cell, and he nearly died in a holding cell. It's like, That's wild, dude. And once again, I figured that's probably what would have happened to Katie if she got arrested, hence why she ran. I mean, once again, well, because she didn't really know the connection of, like, who was behind everything. So I don't know, once again, I'm giving her a lot of bail when it came to the whole dragging Steven back into things, but I'm curious, I said Stefan, I'm curious... Because I said that most likely that whoever this group is probably would hire someone on the inside to kill her if she got locked up, And once again, she's not even in she wouldn't even be full-blown jail and just in a holding cell and would have got just like Stefan did. But either way, I love that Layla shows up to be his lawyer. And it's like, I was like, why are you getting all pissy with her? She's here to defend you. It's like, all right, because she's the one that contacted the cops about where you were. But in her defense, she was trying to like, hey, you are deep trouble. The sooner I get you to turn yourself in, the sooner this is kind of resolved. So he ends up explaining kind of around the time of Anil and Layla's wedding, which I do think it's interesting that even he was like, why are you so focused on this specific day? And it's because Katie was meeting with someone that they're trying to find out who it was. I guess, I mean, it's just like, why that, like, yeah, this other stuff happened, but nothing that would fully get the cops' attention to ask about this specific day. Like, how would you know to even ask about that? And I'm surprised Donahue didn't really push on that. But it's like, I guess they knew something significant went down that day because Katie was meeting with someone, so they were hoping Stefan would have some information. But it seems so oddball that he was even saying, like, yeah, why are you asking about this specific day out of any day? Because this day ended up being the last time he was around Katie. I had previously thought like, oh, maybe like being at Anil and Layla's wedding might have been because I figured like there had to be some jumping off point to why he ended up showing up at her wedding like a month from now. And it turns out later on we find out he hadn't talked to her in like that month time until like he hadn't saw her until he tried to break up the wedding. Well, which we'll get to that soon enough, but circling back around, it seems like they've been kind of doing their fooling around thing ever since Vegas, which you were like, I guess it's like, right, the fun and excitement of it, and you're just so intoxicated by her. Once again, it's on Katie, but there's also a lot that Stefan, in this episode, goes like, right, that is kind of all on me, so. But they ended up, he wants there to be more, but she's like, no, like, the fact is, she's like, hey, I'm gonna go through my wedding, but hey, divorce rates are super high, so almost being like, hey, there's potentially a future for us, but also the thing is, like, yeah, but why get married when you're not really in love is kind of, I'm sure, Stefan's perspective, but also, like, he doesn't want to have to wait around that long, because it's like, God knows how long into the marriage before you get divorced type of thing, it might be years, and so it's like, you should never wait, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, so, like, don't wait around for someone. That's the last thing you should do, like, spend your entire time pining for someone, which I understand understand that better than anyone, once again, being the hopeless romantic that I am. But I've also spent a lot of time pining over women that I shouldn't be. Like, everyone's got their circumstances, you know? Then he gets stopped by, well, no, but first and foremost, he went to see Anil because Anil's freaking out. And I love that. I guess the relationship that they had talked about in the previous episode with the Las Vegas thing was him and this guy. It's like, oh, we've been seeing each other. Like, we went on the second date. It's like, whoa, that is progress for Jackson. And I think him and that person are now seeing each other for a month. And he's like, yeah, like, we're just together. And he's like, yeah, it's great. It's like monogamy, like, it hurts him to some extent. It's just kind of like, I think it's not something he's 100% used to, so it's still in the growing pains of it. He's like, yeah, we kind of like, I forgot what he was saying, but he was almost like, yeah, we talk all the time, and we see each other, like, all the time, and he's like, yeah, it's great, oh, it's so good. You can tell how much it pains him. But Anil is freaking out because every little thing he did for the wedding, he's like, what if I do the wrong thing? What if Layla decides she wants to bolt? He's like, right, everything has to go right because everything else about the wedding's kind of going wrong. It's on you, Stefan. Like, your best man speech has to be killer. It has to be stellar. And it's like, yeah, cool. Of course, it's great. And obviously for Stefan, it's dog shit. So, But while he's working on it, lo and behold, Hugo grabs him up. And I love that Hugo's trying to present, like, oh, I'm not jealous. Like, her with you. He's like, what are you? What are you anyway? He's like, I'm a doctor. He's like, you see nothing. I'm like, even Stefan's like, what? Being a doctor is nothing. Okay, bro. Which is also sad because it's interesting considering, like, present day, Katie tried to, like, minimize his job and stuff like that, too. So I was like, oh, I thought that was so interesting. But Hugo, it's like, right, he comes from a wealthy family, so, like, even you, like, a doctor, you mean nothing, but I'm from a family of power and influence. He's like, you should really know who we are, so, I know nothing's going on between you and my wife, but I don't like the optics of it, because it's an embarrassment for her to be seen with you, so it is like, yeah, he wanted to front like it wasn't about his ego and his feelings being hurt, like he wasn't jealous. He might be so far up his own ass, he might actually believe, like, no, your reputation reflects poorly upon our family, like, if you're hanging with some doctor, you know, like, that's why I'm like, I don't know. I feel like you assume, you can't help but assume it has to be a jealousy thing. It has to be him overcompensating by pretending like it's not about the jealousy, which makes you go like, oh, it's super about you being jealous. So there's that. But he proceeded to go get his guy Bruce to knock Stefan out. They stripped him of his clothes and left him in a graveyard. Problem is, Anil and Layla's rings are in that. So it's like, cool, gotta get those back. So he calls in Katie, because I'm literally, like, the entire time I'm trying to get her name, Katie. I kept saying Rosa. It's like, no, that's the actress's name. Stop. Either way, she wants nothing to do with it because she's like, right, I got something to do today and you're kind of screwing up my plans. And then she also says that super mean line of like, well, you thought I was going to go in there? You thought I was going to go into my fiance's house with my side piece? She's like, what? Look at you. Look at your face. I was like, why are you so mean? You are super, super mean. It's like, yeah, I get you guys. That was like, man, Katie can be so, that's that hot and cold of it all. It's just like, man, she can be like very endearing and sweet, but I think it's just, she's kind of built up these calluses around herself, so she has to be callous sometimes. But then it's like, then those like sweet moments are offset by her kind of being a dick sometimes. That felt like a dickish thing. Like, you didn't have to say all that and do all that. You're just like, right, I can't, because if I go in there to help you, I'm almost like I'm going to get caught. So he has to sneak in, which that was a whole ordeal. Which, while he's getting the rings and his clothes, because he has to get the suit too, he's overhearing, cool, the fact is that what she said was true about the whole, like, oh, he's obsessed with me and stuff like that. I told him, like, no, there's not. But it's like, right, you keep leading him on by, like, letting stuff happen between the both of you. Because he'd even asked, like, early in the episode, like, oh, why don't we ever have sex in the bed? She's like, in a bed? What, are we married? And he's like, yeah, I would love to be. He's like, yeah, 51% joking when I said that. But hearing that was very crushing, because I thought she was calling him just to, like, I thought she was giving Stefan cover, but no, like I'm assuming Hugo called her, questioning her, so it wasn't her calling him to help out. It's like, no, she left Stefan to his own vices, didn't help him because had an appointment she had to make. The mysterious lady that Metz and Donahue were asking about at one point in the episode. Luckily, he got out of there, but once again, not until after he heard all that, which was heartbreaking. I was also scared for a second. I was like, yeah, you got the casing, but like, you didn't bother opening it to make sure the rings were in there, which I was like worried they wouldn't be, but that wasn't an issue at all. But I was like, oh, like, please don't tell me you got all the way back there and didn't bother checking to see if the rings were actually inside. Like, he would have no reason to take the rings out because they don't know it's in the suit when they took it. At least I don't think. But it's kind of a moot point because it didn't happen. What I thought was really interesting too is that they remember Bruce from I want to say it was from Zach's wedding, and it's like, cool. So we need, but they can't really remember him and stuff like that. The photographer might have photos, but now Suji's like, yeah, do we really have to? Because I didn't respond to her text or her calls or like anything at all. So now that's awkward, and I love when that whole awkward exchange is happening. Jackson's laughing his ass off, but for Suji, it's like the opposite of everything. It's kind of similar, but also opposite of Stefan, because it's like, right, we're friends, they both have that thing of just kind of falling in love, and she likes someone for a little bit but never like continuously likes them. But the problem is with the photographer, is like, oh, I liked you, and then like the next day I kept liking you, and I liked you the day after, and it kind of made me talk myself out of contacting you, because it's like, right, I would rather pull a Suji first before you pull the Suji, because she's like, I pulled the Suji because I'm, well, Suji. It's I'd rather hurt you than get hurt in return. It's kind of a defense mechanism of like, haha, I broke up with you before you could break up with me. I think I've actually done that before, because I'm like, I had this inkling like, oh, this girl's going to break up with me. So it's like, yeah, it's like, I get it. It's like it's a inert reaction where you just kind of feel like, oh, this is all going to fail. It's like, right, you're going to bail on me, which I felt that before, where it's like, I've had a girlfriend tell me like, oh, I used to write poems. Yes, I was that guy in high school. I wrote poems, and my girlfriend at the time was like, are these poems about me leaving you? Which, once again, we ended up breaking up either way, but still, it's beside the point. To the point, but beside the point. Like, I just assumed the worst, and it's like, oh, like, any relationship I'm in is going to be doomed, or you're just going to leave me or find something better. So Suji's kind of in that same mind space, and so she just kind of like cut it off, being like, no, you're gonna leave me either way, so I'd rather pull a Suji before you can pull one on me. So, but it's like, right, I do legitimately like you, and I want to, like, I promise I'll answer your calls this time. But luckily they got the photos. I love that the couple she's photographing, and it's like, oh, she's like, do you want any silly photos? They're like, okay, and she's like, I know this isn't gonna sound weird or anything, but can we get them dressed up as a crab? And the photographer's looking at her like, why crabs? Okay, and even later on, the wife's like, "Yeah, it does look weird or something, you know." And then there was also the whole situation of Stefan trying to find Anil, because Anil didn't show up to the. I mean, obviously the ceremony hadn't happened yet, but he hadn't showed. Like, he snuck out and left, and he's like chowing down, and Stefan's the one that kind of talked him off the ledge of like, "Hey, like, the fact is, regardless of, yeah, you've done a lot of stuff that, no, she's not, Layla's not going to like it, but she's going to love it because it's beside the point. You know, it's like, none of that matters. What matters is the fact is you tried, and it was all about her, and she probably won't like some of the stuff and decisions you made, but she'll love it regardless because of what it represents." So. And I love that the wedding wasn't a swimming pool. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, I've never seen that in a movie or TV show. I've never heard about that in real life. Just a few, like, God, of specialized weddings you get glimpses of that you can find on the internet and stuff like. But I've never thought a swimming pool. I mean, it has significance because it's like, right, this is where we met, like, during, like, swimming lessons and stuff. So I was like, okay, so it has significance, but it's still weird. And they even talk about how it smells like chlorine. And it was a very beautiful moment. And when the time came for the big speech, It was a beautiful speech on Stefan's behalf because he took that line from Anil where it's like, love shouldn't be that hard from like the beginning. Like, yeah, like you're obviously in a relationship, you're gonna have your rough patches, but it shouldn't be that hard because for Stefan, he's like, I always thought that love was something you always had to fight for, like some great fight for, but it's like, no. He's like, when I look at Anil and Layla, it's so easy. I mean, this man did everything wrong, but look at his bride by his side. She's so happy, and that smile, it's like she still loves him wholeheartedly despite him doing everything wrong. It's like, that's love, and it shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't have to be something you have to fight for to just kind of make work from the beginning. It should just be that easy. And even Katie kind of surprised. She's like, wow, you look kind of less happy to see me more so than usual. And she's like, what do you want from me? He's like, I, for the first time, know what I want. I want you to go. Because for him, it's such a hot and cold thing of like, I nearly met, like, this is on you. Like, the whole Hugo thing kind of happened because of you. Because you also left me high and dry. You said what you said. You left me high and dry because you had something important to do. But this was also important to me. I missed out on something very important. I'm kind of in hot water with my friends because I wasn't there for Anil. And I'm severely apologizing because of the whole Las Vegas thing, and you knew how important this was to me, but he's like, I needed you, and you couldn't even be there for me, knowing how important this is to me. Because she even made point of like, oh, he's the orphan, and he latches on to people. She was saying all the stuff she could just to like make Hugo feel more superior and stuff like that. She wasn't saying, because she legitimately didn't want Stefan to hear it, but he did. And it's like, right, because he does attach himself to people, and that's why these people are so important to him, because he talked about in the first episode about the whole, he latched onto this group of friends because they are his family. They mean the world to him. So, and he even said like that was the last time he saw Katie. And I even love that he was like tearing up. And I love Donahue being like, it's okay. And like Layla being like, can I hug my friend? And Donahue being like, if you don't, I will. It was so beautiful. Like Layla consoling him. And so Donahue's he's a romantic at heart. Like he's a kindred spirit. I love that. I thought that was so beautiful. Especially because he had that conversation earlier about like, oh, do you go in a pet store all the time? And you see the snakes, do you get them? And he's like, yeah, I did twice or something like that. And even later on making reference to like, oh yeah, like you need to be careful. The snakes, you need to, he's like, I've had some snakes in my life. You need to keep an eye on them type of thing. And so like, I think he was talking literally about the pet snakes he got, but obviously he probably also meant it metaphorically in the like, oh, some people in your life can be snakes. I knew something was up with the Mets situation. I'd already called it a couple episodes ago, but I didn't know if they were going to like make you think, oh, it was Mets, and it ended up being Donahue. But what solidified it in this episode for me was Donahue was asking all the questions. He's like, yeah, but what if there's some truth to Stefan's story? And Mets kept being like, no, you're looking for something deeper here when it's not. It's like, you're trying too hard to like get him to stop asking questions. You're definitely, because she's like, James, and he's like, oh, I like it when you call me by my first name. She did that on purpose to kind of like get your like guard down. But it's like the moment that happened, I was like, she is a part of all of this. But also, like I brought up earlier, the last time he saw Katie was that time, and the next time he saw her was like her wedding, because apparently she sent him a message saying that she couldn't go through with it. He thought the marriage, but I guess there was something else at play here. Like she was going to probably do something else. I don't know. Either she was going to potentially kill them, but she backed out and someone took what she had already gotten ready and did it regardless, or just she was going to rob them blind and she just like, right, I can't do that. And maybe I don't know what she was going to do. There was that interesting thing too of like, they were kind of like, why, because, for Donahue, it's like, why would she kill Fred? Because even there's no guarantee he's like, that any of the money would land in her. So like, killing Fred does nothing to her. She won't get the money anyway. So I was like, right, like what did she change on Victor's laptop then if it wasn't the will? Or maybe they don't have access to the will at this point in time. You would assume they would, but I guess like even all of them dying doesn't do her any good. I don't know. But luckily they got a picture of Bruce, but he isn't just like some like Delaney hire. He's a guy that's what's it like? Interpol's got like things out for him. Like he's had a lot of arrests, but he's always kind of gotten out of it. Like some very like high prices were paid to kind of get him out. So I'm assuming he's connected to the block, and maybe that's why they were like he was there with the Delaney's. Either the block sent him there to keep an eye on the Delaney's because they were trying to steal what Katie ended up stealing, or just the Delaney's and the block were working together on something, and he was just meant. I don't know. There's definitely, I mean, to the point that Hugo had him just straight up doing the laundry and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting. He's kind of meant to be like I guess, the bodyguard and stuff like that. You just had him literally doing like housework for you. But the moment Metz came to meet Stefan by herself, I was like, oh boy. She's like, right, there's something more going on here. I didn't want to say anything. I was like, shut up, you're lying. And she's like, right, we're going to put you somewhere safe. I was like, the moment she's kind of like, oh, we're going to transfer you. I'm like, they're going to try and kill you mid-transport. It's like, oh, they're not even leaving the station. They're literally putting you in a room and going to make it look like you try to kill yourself. And even Metz is like, I honestly do feel bad about doing this, but you know too much at this point in time. Because he never, like, I don't think he ever brought up the organization's name in the conversation. If he did, it was never like in the confines of the episode. He was just saying like there's a group, but he never actually used the name Block. So, but it's like, right, showing you how far the reach is. Once again, I believe every time she was on the phone saying she was talking to their boss, I doubt it. I think she was talking to her real boss, not like the police boss, but like, or like their commanding officer, their lieutenant or whatever, but more so like whoever her liaison or whoever she's taking orders from within Block is what I'm thinking. So either way, we'll ultimately have to wait and see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.